live. You're live. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're live. Hello and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Thank you all for coming, and I got great guests tonight. Delamore Stucci and Lucky Stone. Thank you for coming. We were going to do this show last week. It's changed up a little bit because it's now Easter, but we're going to dig deep into all kinds of things tonight. So bear with us. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Everybody from Nina the Mystic, Chloe, who's homesick, send her good wishes. And she's got the you know what thing. And Lori Elderkin, Scotty Boy, and Drums Stud. I guess that's that. I guess I said that right. Anyway, if I missed anybody, it's all good. We'll catch you later. But anyway, thank you all for coming. And tonight we're going to talk about springing into things, sweeping away the old and bringing in the new. Did you guys know that April 1st was really actually the new year back in the day?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've heard that before.
And I appreciate it that way.
Yeah.
That's what it should be, because it's the beginning, spring, rebirth. And they used to make jokes out of people who believe that. That's why the April Fools came, because they made fun of those people. And that's when I started to think maybe that should be the real beginning of the year. And they're trying to hide it by making people foolish to if they believe that.
Which it's pretty obvious is the nose on your face that it's the beginning of the spring season, a new life coming to, and then you celebrate Easter. So why would my question is, why would they change it when they're showing us that the church wise and the religion wise, let's go to the religion, you're killing off the guy and you're having a rebirth, of newness because of this, and they're celebrating because the guy on the stick died, which makes no sense, because it's like, so you're killing off the old year and starting anew.
But
like
not all cultures celebrate New Year on January 1st. I know, for example, that in Iran, they celebrated on the 22nd of March, which is very close to the 1st of April. That's the Persian New Year.
Yeah.
But also, when you think of
sense.
October, Oc means 8. It doesn't mean 10. November is 9, not 11. So that's always confused me. Why is December number 10 when December means 10, but why is it the 12th day of the year? And that's because they added February and January. I'm like, no, that's not it all. They changed the whole calendar.
It's been changed a couple of times. I mean, there's even differences between the Imperial Russian calendar. For example, the infamous October Revolution actually happened in November. So, and December, that's derived from dec, which means 10. So actually, it should be dodecabember.
Yeah. But then you got April, and it's, I don't know what the significance of that number is of the months, but it's still the point that it's the spring of the year, at least for the northern half. But that's where all the decisions are always made, is in the northern half.
Yeah.
It's not the south.
That's where the majority of the people live. The most populous countries on earth are China and India, and they're both in the northern hemisphere.
Yep.
So yeah, that's just the way the land masses work.
Well,
but it's interesting that in the Czech calendar, April is Duben, and Duben means that's derived from dub, which means oak tree. So that's when the oak leaves start coming out.
Nice. Yeah, because that is true. Spring of the year. Well, not so. Even here, the snow is melting. Last week we were having below zero temperatures. Even within the last week, it was below zero. And today, I think it got up to like 40 or 45. And I think it's 46 right now outside. And I think tomorrow they're saying it's supposed to be like 60 or something, and which is the warmest temperature we've had here since like I would say October.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, here
Yeah.
in Germany today it was 40 I was just looking it up for somebody, 5 degrees Celsius or 40 degrees Fahrenheit
Hmm.
here in Germany. So
Yeah.
we're supposed to have kind of a colder climate, kind of like where you live, Robert.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely cold. That's no doubt about that. But we suffer through it. We
Mhm.
we just don't have the force and stuff like that here. Everything is barren and plain. And I got thinking about it the other day. And if we didn't truck in all the supplies that we need, this would be almost an uninhabitable place to live. And
Yeah, even in ancient times before you had all that technology, you had people living up there.
well, yeah, the people really didn't live here. We think that the Indians lived here, but they didn't come here until the advent of the horse,
Oh,
and they lived more to the east. All the Indians, they're really every book I read from way back said that the Indians, before the time of the horse, did not live on the plains. There
Hmm.
was literally so little out here. There was nothing for them. I mean, what are you going to burn? Wood? No.
mhm.
The winters get really cold. You can't hunt anything. You'll have to travel miles to see anybody. Maybe you could live by a river. There was very few people out here. They came out here in the summertime to hunt the buffalo, but traveled inwards because you need certain things to survive. And you need heat, and you need a supply of fuel for that, and then you need water,
Mhm.
and then you need shelter, and shelter could be created by trees. You could take those branches and bend them and make logs and pile dirt around them, which they did, and made these like hut things that were covered in dirt. I went out, I might have a picture of one here, I'll show you later. But yeah, they lived in these things, but without
A lot,
that.
a lot of the early American settlers would live in what they called dugouts, which was basically a cut and cover system where they would dig this deep trench and then just cover it over with logs
Yeah.
and then put dirt over that as like a roof, and they would live in that because that insulates well against both heat and cold and tornadoes, because
Mhm.
tornadoes never go beneath ground level.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, tornadoes, if you're in a hilly area, it's hard. They like the flatter areas, tornadoes
Mhm.
do. They do not climb hills.
Yeah, they don't know, and it's always in the Midwest that you hear about tornadoes like you had last week in the
Yeah.
United States. I mean, when I lived in the United States, I only had one terrifying experience with a tornado. And when I looked at the map recently, it was only about 6 miles away from East Palestine. I was traveling Route 80 east, I mean west towards Michigan, and it was
Hmm.
right on the Pennsylvania-Ohio border, and that's all flatland pretty much. And
Mm.
this thing came out of nowhere, swept the 18-wheeler in front of me off to the ditch, and ripped off one of my windshield wipers. So
Wow.
that's how powerful it was. But I was well loaded down with like structural steel. I had a welding machine, so yeah, I was pretty well loaded down, but it terrified the hell out of me.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Tornadoes come out of middle of nowhere. Like
Hmm.
like here, I've tried to take pictures of some of the little tornadoes. We got those dust devils,
Mhm.
and they literally come out of nowhere. And sometimes with the dust and stuff, you can really see, and they're pretty good size, although they don't really do any damage, but they're just there. And then as fast as they're there and you try to get your camera, they're gone,
Mhm.
Hmm.
just that fast.
Yeah, we had one of those to destroy one of our fences. I guess a dust devil came and just ripped up, basically just took a section of fence, just took it away.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
it was gone. No one knows where it went. It got flew somewhere. And I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, why didn't you come over to see the tornado? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I was down feeding the dog, because the dog had problems, and I had a hand feed the dog, and I came out, and just the fence was just opened. It was just the wood was gone in a section.
mm,
And of course, the
Mhm.
horses are like, what is going on? and they didn't cross through it because they could have just run out if they wanted to, but because of the dust hill came and took it away, the horse was like, yeah, what's going? They were looking, they were like probably like 30 feet away, looking at the hole in the fence.
Yeah.
They were curious, but they didn't want to go in there because they didn't know what caused that problem.
Yeah, because they're so used to seeing that hole in the fence. I mean,
Yeah,
not no hole there. It was a fence a few minutes ago.
Yeah, because I guess the dust devil came, it swung and came down, but probably about 10 feet and through the fence, it went gone again. Like I said, I didn't see it. I just heard about it from my mother, my sister, my cousins, all horse people, and they were practicing their barrel racing. It's weird. Yeah, exactly. And I've actually never seen one, but probably my life has been 5 of them where I've been in proximity of them. 2, like 3 or 4 dust devils in one tornado. Again, I've never seen them. I only heard about them.
It's a terrifying thing. It really is. Trust me, you don't want to be in one. I recently was in a chat with somebody talking about like anomalous phenomenon of like things that shouldn't be landing in huge amounts in one area, doing so because of tornadoes. But that kind of led to the other interesting phenomenon of like star jelly. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No, star jelly.
Yes, look it up. It's bizarre. I experienced this. It was the weirdest thing. I used to live in New Jersey, and on the back porch there was this like concrete stoop that I used to always go to smoke. And one night, because this happened overnight, I mean, I used to go there to smoke all the time. One night, this blob, it was absolutely clear jelly that appeared on one of the steps, and I had no idea what it was. So it was perfectly clear. There was no color to it, and I touched it with a stick, and it had kind of like the consistency of more so of honey than like a jellyfish, if you've ever experienced that at the beach.
There you go. There's your picture.
Yeah, it had no smell to it whatsoever, none. And I didn't want to touch it. And my father saw it, and he didn't want to touch it either. So he decided to pour some bleach on it. And within a couple of hours, it just disappeared and left behind nothing but like the white bleach stain. So
where does it come from?
Nobody knows. That's the thing. It's been theorized that it's like frog eggs, or it's been theorized that it's like some kind of an egg mass. But if it was an egg mass, it wasn't even like this. It was actually perfectly clear. That looks kind of like a mold growth.
Yeah.
The thing I saw was perfectly round. It was about the size of, I don't know, maybe 3 inches across.
Yeah. Well, it's just the photos we get. Star jelly is a gelatinous substance sometimes found on grass or even on branches of trees. According to folklore, it is deposited on Earth during meteor showers. It is described as a translucent or grayish-white gelatin that tends to evaporate shortly after having fallen. Explanations have ranged from it being remains of frogs, toads, or worms to the byproducts of bacteria. Reports of the substance date back to the 14th century and have continued to the present. Interesting.
Now, okay, going back to the 14th century, what was the 14th century notorious for?
Black Plague.
Exactly. So, and some have theorized that the Black Plague could have been of extraterrestrial origin because the Earth went through like a cloud of some sort of star material.
Yeah. Oh, huh. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. And so I did some reading on it, and there was an incident back in the 60s in Philadelphia where they saw a star jelly mass. It was like a clear mass that was about a foot thick and about 6 feet wide. And the cops were called, and they didn't know what to do. And one of them touched it with a stick, and the thing started like vibrating, fizzling, and then it just went poof and disappeared. So,
wow. And see, that's the thing too, is stuff like that. What if somebody touched it, and then it was, space stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, every stuff like that they don't have any recollection of. Does it carry some bacteria or a germ or a virus? And then, oh, I touched it. Well, I'm fine. And then I didn't wash my hands. And the next thing you know, I ate some food and I got sick, and then I passed it to everybody. And now we got a worldwide contamination of something we've never seen before.
Because that's not the only anomalous thing to come from the sky. I mean, there have been rains of blood.
Yep.
There have been rains of fish, of
Mhm.
dead birds, of
Mhm.
stones.
Yep.
And the weirdest one I heard, this happened in England in the 50s, where it was like hundreds and thousands of Chinese rubber stamps, like rubber stamps,
Yeah.
like where did that come from? Did like a tornado hit a museum
Yeah.
or something, or what?
See,
How did it get
see,
there?
see now the rubber stamps, you could kind of probably trace that down if you
Yeah.
really had to. You could see where, you know, it's probably come from China or something, or you could trace the rubber. You could maybe find a manufacturing, maybe it was a plane, like you said, maybe it was a tornado and got whipped up in the sky, somebody
Hmm.
dumping some cargo and it took a while to fall and it spread out or whatever. That I could see, but those times, like you said, with fish or frogs or stones or rain, red, you know, blood rain,
Mhm.
you know, it takes a lot of red to get rain to come down as blood, or
Right.
stones or fish. Who's hauling fish in the air?
Exactly. Or the rain of blood. That was attributed to a microorganism and a certain type of erythrocyte. But the fact that it happens in a certain village in India on a certain day every year, that's
Mhm.
weird. Like,
Yeah.
what's behind that? I mean, there are so many things that we just have no idea of what's behind it, or that most people are not even aware of.
Yes. Yes. There's a lot of stuff going on that people just don't pay attention to.
Hmm.
And then when you do pay attention to it, then it's like, well, that's out of the normal. But then how many people, you know, start complaining about it or realizing there's something? They usually just go on. I hate to say this, but I watched a video my buddy had sent me about some lady. She had a camera on. I mean, there was it was probably a CCC camera that was watching her in a restaurant, and she was cutting a lemon. She cut the lemon, cut it in half. You could see that she cut the lemon. She went to get a container, and when she got the container and came back, the lemon was not cut.
Yeah, that's
And she's like, and then she's like, well, and she kind of like, and there was no cuts in the tape, I don't think. But I mean, it was a continuous footage. It really looked like it. I don't know. You can't trust things nowadays. But then, she recut the lemon and put it in the bag. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, she looked pretty bewildered when she was like, I just cut that. And then she stopped and took a look around. And I'm thinking, yeah, I've had done things too. And I went, thought I just did that. But then, I just shrug it off and I go about my business.
Yeah,
Mhm.
me too. I've had things like little trivial things like that happen to me, and what if it is one of these weird things happening? Where you think you put something somewhere, and it turns out it's somewhere completely different.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, how did
Where
it get there? Why
yeah,
did it
where
get
it's
there?
it's something really
Hmm.
specific. Like let's say I don't know, a compass.
Yeah.
All right, and you have it in a certain spot, and then when you're not looking, in the meantime, because you need it, you buy it online, you use it, and then you find the original one like in your car somewhere,
Hmm. Yeah, or you never find it.
or you
There's
never
times
find it.
I've lost things that I still to this day don't know where it went. Like, where did that go? I had that for years and years and years, and then it just disappeared, and I never gave it a second thought, and I've never seen it again. Of
Mhm.
course, you could go to those things where there's missing people. I mean, you've seen those shows, the 411 missing show, Can-Am Missing, David Politis. I've read some of his stories here. I got his books right here, and the 411 missing books.
Yes, I'm well
These
familiar with it.
these people just walking down the street.
Mhm.
The one that baffles me the most is where the guy went with his friends. They're in the bar. There's only one entrance to the bar. One. There's cameras everywhere. And he splits up with his buddies. He says, you know, I'm going to go home or something like that. And he never walks out the door. Yet he never made it home. And then the bar was empty and they all left. He was never seen again.
Yeah. Couple of incidents like that. Yeah.
Where did he go? I mean, the camera should have seen him walk out the door. I mean, or somewhere, but it was like he left as soon as he was out of their sight. Poof, he's gone. And
see, that's the thing. You know, when you have camera evidence, that makes it all the more baffling, because cameras don't have biases. Cameras don't have attention lapses. Cameras don't have preferences. You know, it sees what you aim it at. So, you know, the fact that but I know which case you're talking about. Yeah. There's a couple of such incidents, and there's a couple of commonalities, like the fact that dogs won't follow the scent, or they'll display anomalous behavior, like walking around in circles or laying down.
So is this, you know, the title of the show is Sweeping Away the Old and Ushering in the New. Is this a way of the matrix that we live in, sweeping away certain things to, you know, make a new reality? I mean, that person could have influenced somebody, that you know, whatever, those keys you lost or that compass you misplaced, that could have done something for you. You were distracted by the loss of that.
Well, see, some things really have changed, and they will never go back. World's not going back to pre 9/11. World's not going now to pre-COVID.
Yeah.
It's never going to be the same, unfortunately.
I know. I miss those days.
Yeah, so do I. So do I, because the majority of my life, don't forget, I'm 55 years old, and the majority of my life has been lived before the age of 9/11. So
yeah, I'm right there behind you.
Yeah, I think we're all the same age, actually.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's the other anomaly. 9/11 happened exactly 3.00 days before my 33rd birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. And as if that's not a coincidence, I was born on September the 14th, exactly 3 weeks and 3 days after the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia.
Wow.
In Czechoslovakia, I was born, of course. And where I live now, much to my chagrin, when I actually looked it up on Google Maps, is exactly 333.0 kilometers from the exact spot where I was born.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, in other words, my life is intimately tied in with the number 3, but it's not always a good thing, because for me, like, one of the unluckiest numbers ever is always number 21. Anything associated with the number 21 is like bad. And what is 21? That's 3 times 7.
Yeah, with the 3.
Yeah. Where interestingly enough, some of the luckiest numbers in my life have always been 13 or multiples thereof.
Yeah. Never
So
thought that's a good one.
And the reason I'm mentioning dates and stuff is because dates are like a temporal matrix on the calendar. Like if you were to graph out the calendar in a grid format, one big grid, and put like a series of intersecting lines on it, you have certain repeating events that repeat either based on the week or the month or the quarter or the year, and they just keep repeating for whatever reason. That explains a lot of astrology and a lot of like weird numerological phenomena like the one I mentioned.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that run in cycles, and as any cycle goes, you know, it's always, you know, really close on certain days, you know, and of course all those cults, they are dreaming up things. There are so many occults here. I got some stuff to share, but anyway, those occults are, it's like they have the knowledge. They have what do you call it? it's like they're in tune with it all. You know, they have that secret book that they're studying from, and we just don't get to see it. And they're following a script almost. We think that these cults are.
Well, on
And
the other hand,
are they just following a cycle?
well, see, on the other hand, they could be just presenting themselves as being more powerful than they really are, but using things like synchronicities and appearances. I mean, hello.
There's
There.
there's the cults. You know, you were talking about a
Yeah.
cult. So
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of different ones. You know, I mean, you got ones that do one thing and ones that do black men in black kind of thing. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, we the people just don't pay attention to them.
Well,
That
see, I've looked into like, I guess one of the most popular cults that has popped up of late, and that would be the World Economic Forum.
yes.
And I did some research on it, and they claim that they've infiltrated most of the parliaments of the earth and stuff. Well, okay, that may very well be true, but if you go down the list of members, which is public, which you can access on their website, 99.9% of those people you've never heard of, that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Okay. And if he claims that they've infiltrated, that does not necessarily imply that these people in any way affect the outcomes of that government. Because what does a cabinet of a government do? The cabinet of a government is beholden to the head of state or the head of government, depending on how the country is set up. It's not beholden to some WEF. Okay. So in other words, I think that's more posturing than anything else. And I think they have a lot less power than we've been led to believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it depends where the power comes from, because if you infiltrate the news, you got a lot more power than if you infiltrate the government, because the news influence the minds of the people. But
True.
No,
That's
the man who controls the media controls the people,
I
controls the
can't watch
world.
news. It's just like, and my friends who listen to it, I'm like, no, that's only partially true. Because especially I work in pharmaceuticals, so when they come up with this ideas that what you're supposed to do, I don't know how much I can and can't say, but basically the whole time, the past 2 years, was all a bunch of lies, and then it came out, the truth came out afterwards. And I told from the beginning that this is the lies. It's so obvious. But
Yeah.
but now it's just like, yeah, well, it was for the time. Like, no, they lied from the beginning.
Yep.
Well, yeah, they lie, but they tell you the truth in one way because they have to. There's like this unwritten law that controls the universe that says you need to put it out there. And if people accept it by their own free will, you got to have that free will part in there, then it's okay. They may regret it later, but as long as they were like, they were free to say no. We told them that there was a pandemic coming. We told them that people were going to die. And then we said, here, blah, blah, blah. And we made tons of movies about it. People watched them. And yet they followed the movie script right to the penny. Why? I told you how the movie was going and what the ending result is, but you still followed the script. What's up with that?
I know.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. Why are people so gullible and influenced?
Because they can. I don't know what it is, because they've been trained. I don't know when it became. When did obedience ever become a virtue? Okay. When did the deference to authority ever become a virtue? No, it's never those people that are the ones responsible for human progress and advancement. It's always the nonconformist, the rebel, the weirdo, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the conformist.
Yeah.
And I saw through the lies right from the very start. I saw through the lies when 9/11 happened. I knew that this was not the official fairy tale, was false.
Yeah. I mean, I remember 9/11, for instance. I sat there that morning. I'll never forget it, watching it on watching the planes hit the buildings and going, oh my gosh, but at that moment, didn't dawn on me that could actually not really be real, because it looked so real. It took, a number of years to put it together going, a plane like that can really not knock a building down.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
Mhm.
It's like planes are made out of aluminum, and the wings and things would disintegrate, and it's like throwing a pop can at an oak tree.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't, and then when these engineers came out and said, you got all those floors, and each floor has got, 4 to 6 inches of concrete, and then there's steel beams in there. I'm thinking, yeah, that would have just sliced that plane open like a sardine can.
Yeah.
Now, how did that just, that doesn't make any sense now.
Mhm. Mhm. I know. And when you point out the obvious that, steel melts at something like the 2400 degrees Fahrenheit, but jet fuel burns at 900. So how is that possible?
Yeah.
If that was possible, you could very cheaply weld pieces of steel together just by spraying them with gasoline and lighting them on fire,
Yeah. Well, and then a lot of people think, oh, jet fuel is really, burnable, blah, 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 blah. But really, it's just a high grade of kerosene.
It's heating oil.
Yeah, it's oily. It's
Mhm.
not gas. It explodes way more than kerosene or diesel fuel. It's hard to get diesel fuel to light.
Yeah.
Gas, boy, you better get out of the way. You blow yourself up. But
Mhm.
and jet fuel, like I said, that's why people use kerosene in their house to heat things. They don't blow themselves up.
Exactly, and that's also why diesel cars are safer because the mixture of diesel and air has to actually be compressed to a much higher extent than the gasoline fuel mixture in order to explode. That's why diesel engines are always the blocks are heavier and thicker because you need a much higher compression to get it to ignite.
Yeah, exactly. But are all these things to happen to change our world, to make it new and changeable? Because obviously these things shouldn't have happened on a normal everyday basis. These things don't happen. So now that we're coming into the spring of the year, will this be the change time for a new changeover? Will something be swept? Are we looking for a change here? That's the question.
Well, I think change is pretty much guaranteed because, a lot of people look back and say, oh, I think 1963 was a watershed year. I'm like, bullshit. Every year is a watershed year. Every day is a watershed day. Okay. There is no non-watershed year, day, month, or whatever. But if you look at it from a global perspective, which I feel I do have, most of these anomalous events tend to happen in the United States and only in the United States.
Mhm.
I mean, look at 9/11 that happened in the US. Look at COVID. It was first, you could say, popularized by the United States.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the research and all the labs and everything that was funded by the United States. So, all these mass school shootings that you see, that only happens in the US. That almost never happens anywhere in Europe.
Yeah. Why is there such a big difference between Europe and us here?
Yeah,
And is that
because like
because
what they say it's the guns, but if you look at Europe, in Switzerland, every male above 18 years of age is required by law to have a gun and to know how to use it and to keep adequate supplies of ammunition in his house. In Serbia, you have more people owning guns per capita than in the United States. In Czech Republic, it's getting close because over there everybody has the right to bear arms, and you can buy a gun in a gas station, for Christ's sake.
that's nice.
Yeah.
Does it make you feel, is it safer than there? I mean,
I
people
it,
aren't.
it, it definitely safer. Definitely safer in terms of like street crime or like violent crime. Definitely safer in Czech Republic than it is than in the United States. The only time you're not safer is in terms of things like white collar crime and fraud. There's a lot of that in Czech Republic. You could almost say that we invented it.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, because when you got more guns, you know, I don't, you know, people, you know, everybody's got a gun around here. Well, I don't want to break in that house. I don't want to rob that guy. He'll shoot me. You know, I guess that's the way look at it. But I think they're gearing up for a change. This is a spring. Spring is a time of change, of sweeping out the old, and that's what's happening now. And I hate to say it, but the United States is the old, and it's time. I live here, so do you, Lucky. And what do you think? Do you think it's getting swept out? Its time is over?
I think
Me?
so.
Yeah, you live here.
No, I think it's all just about fear. Honestly, in China's, you know, if OPEC goes with the Chinese dollar, the United States, the greenback's no longer, and like, oh, big scary thing. What will really happen? What will happen is the United States has oil, we have gas, we have resources. The only thing that's going to happen is that we won't be able to import as much because we won't be able to afford it, which means the companies in the country will have to make their own stuff now. Rather than buying it cheap from China, we'll be able to have our own people making it. Our biggest problem is we don't manufacture anything. So
Yeah, well,
if the economy in the United States falls out because we can't afford to buy anything from everyone else, we'll have to make it ourselves. Oh, big scary. Yes, it'll be 10 years of fear and oh my God, what we're going to do. But the United States, we're very, very intelligent. We figured these stuff out. China and Japan, and you know, they didn't figure out how to make the stuff. They figured out how to improve it. China makes stuff for us because it's cheaper to make it there. But we have the brains to figure out how to make this stuff. You know, the only person we got to worry about is Germany. Germany, you know, they're engineers. They're all engineers over in Germany. But United States, we have the knowledge, we have the creativity to make our own stuff. We just don't do it because it's cheaper to make it in China. So yes, am I afraid? No, it's all gonna fix. It's all just historical. Like the water comes in and out, like the tide. We're just a tide, no big deal.
Oh yeah, but you got the people running the joint are saying, you know, the old guy that's sleeping half the time is saying, we don't want to burn no, you know, use our oil. We're not going to do. We're going to go wind and solar, and where's all that stuff come from?
Which means we're going to go windsurfing to work or something.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. We got Lucky, you're right. We have plenty of oil and coal right here, but they want to switch us over to this system that just isn't functional. There's no way to get an electric car to run like a gas car.
No, even worse, the resources to make those electric cars are destroying China. They're destroying parts of South America. They're part of Africa, buying those resources to make those batteries. And a friend of mine has one of those stupid electric cars, and he wanted to go, oh, batteries look good, I have to get a new one. And of course, they said to him, you can't replace the battery. It'll cost you more to replace the battery than to buy a new car. So, you know, the car he had to, you know, basically it's worthless for scrap. You know, they paid him pennies on the dollar. And where that's going to go? Probably the junkyard and going to poison the junkyard. So yes, what's going to happen is we're going to go through this thing. We're all going to save the rest of the, eventually it's all going to fail. I mean, that's what's going to happen. And the people who have the brains don't have any power right now, but eventually it's all going to fail and fall apart. And the people with the ingenuity, we're going to go, okay, this is how we're going to improve things. I mean, I bought a used Subaru and it's getting, I have a 2004 and we just bought a 2011. The 2011 is getting almost like 75% better gas mileage than my 2004. And it's like, that's how we improve gas mileage. A friend of mine back in, oh God, it was 2000, was talking about the what we should going is forget about electric cars. We should be going to hydrogen cars because, of course, we're afraid of the Hindenburg. But he said they proved that you can have a safe tank of hydrogen and run it much more efficiently, and you produce what? Water. You use the oxygen from the air, hydrogen. We can make the hydrogen. We can make the hydrogen by literally using solar power to actually split the hydrogen and oxygen. And basically, I think Iceland was doing that at one point. Iceland. So, I mean, yes, we have options that are better than an electric car, but they're not economic. I mean, basically, there's a lot more money in selling an electric car than it is, the hydrogen car.
Yeah, that's true.
But like I said,
Absolutely.
it has to, once it all fails, then we'll have the ingenuity to say, okay, what's the better option? But we have to wait till everything fails, and the people who just follow what the news says, at some point they're going to be like, it's all wrong. Everything's falling apart. I mean, the current president, he's a joke. He's blaming everything to the last president, but eventually he's going to step up and go, yeah, I made the mistakes. Yeah, no, they're going to go, oh no, it's last guy's fault. Eventually people are going to smarten up and go, huh, what can we do better than these guys have been telling all this for years, been lying to us? But
look at it this way. The first act that Biden did in office was that he shut down the Keystone Pipeline, which is interesting because the first thing that Trump did in office was he opened the Keystone Pipeline, which guaranteed for the next 4 years the United States' energy independence for the first time in many years.
Worse, that damn thing was almost paid for when he should have shut it down. When he shut it down, it cost more to actually close it down than it would be to continue the whole thing. Yes, it was all just.
And see, from an outside perspective, I would say that the United States is on its way out for a couple of reasons. That it's unsustainable, because if you look at it from a historical perspective, it's a country, but it's not a nation, unlike the other nations of the world like China or Germany or Czech Republic, where most nations have a unitary form of government, which means that there's one set of laws for the whole country. You don't have like state, federal, local laws, stuff like that. So, why even from a taxpayer's perspective inside the United States, why would somebody want to be under state laws, county laws, federal laws, and municipal ordinances, and paying taxes to all these different entities above them, when they could just have, let's say, the state legislature of Nevada over them and just pay taxes to Nevada, and that's it. Wouldn't that be in the interest of all the taxpayers just to have the individual state government? So, in other words, even if the United States does go away, the state of Delaware is not going anywhere. The state of New Jersey is not going anywhere. And I think a lot of people will be happy for it once the federal government goes the way of the dinosaur.
You make a very good point. Yeah, because I owe $5,000 to the federal government right now. And it was like, how we do this? It was because my wife didn't fill the form out last year the right way. So, it's like, wait a second. And the other problem is that our federal system of taxes is so stupid. We should be able, at the end of the year, I should have got a bill from the federal government saying, okay, this is what you owe, and here's why. Rather than me fiddling out, going online, taking all my paperwork from the different places, which they already know full well how much I owe. But I've got to go through all the things and go to the tax and pay for like $30 for a tax form to input all this information to find out, oh yeah, you owe $5,000. It's like, wait, what the fuck? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Why is this so complicated? And of course, my son, who actually, he's going to school, but he had a part-time job, and he, and then they're like, oh yeah, no, he has to file too. And I try to file through my forms, and it's like, and basically they want to fill out all my stuff before I can fill out my son's, and they go, yeah, you got to make a whole new account for your son. So I had to use his email and his cell phone in order to figure it out. He says he got $200, but that was free at least because he's a kid. They made it free, which is nice.
Still, it's a very antiquated system, and a lot of people adhere to it like it's like some kind of a dogma. Like this whole Constitution thing, that was conceived by, in the age of the horse and buggy, where you have illogical things like, for example, the House of Representatives, that's proportional based on population, but the Senate, why does Wyoming, which has next to no population, get 2 senators just like California does? That's totally illogical. That doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't make for better democracy. And when you think about it, representative democracy itself is kind of antiquated because it was conceived in an age where the largest room could only hold about 400 people. Whereas nowadays you can create a room online where you have 2 billion people. So why can't you have direct democracy where every citizen has a voice without the need for intermediaries that can be bought and paid for with bribes? Because think about it, if somebody wanted a specialty law passed in their favor, they would have to bribe all the citizens, right? If every citizen had his own vote and you didn't have to rely on some Congress people, then it would be a much fairer system if you had direct democracy like that.
Yeah. Yes, it would. And that's the thing. You're right, because the people were so remote. You couldn't send a guy from California all the way to Washington every time he, a whole group of people. And then time wise and communications wise, it's just not feasible. By the time they got to Washington to make decisions, the people in California have lived a different life. You get back a year later, well, I made all these decisions for you. Well,
besides,
changed.
back then, who could afford just to pick up and leave for 9 months or even 3 months out of the year to go all the way cross country to Washington, D.C. just to engage in like some ivory tower debates. No normal person back then had that time, had that kind of time. You had to be rich. And
well, the only reason true democracy can never work because using ID cards is racist. So you can't use ID cards. So they decided that I can't buy pseudoephedrine without a license. I can't buy alcohol without a license. But if they tell me I have to use a license to vote, well, that's racist. So we can't do that. So that's why we can't have democracy.
Yeah. And it hinges on stupid things like that.
I have a friend who's he's a liberal, nicest guy in the world, but he falls for that hook, line, and sinker. Oh, what about the homeless people? The homeless people buy alcohol. The homeless people buy pseudoephedrine, because I know pseudoephedrine works for me. The phenylephrine I can go on the shelf. It doesn't work. But I have to go and say, okay, I'm not going to make meth. I promise. Here's my license. I only buy one for this week. Thank you very much. But I can't vote. If they have to ask for my ID, if I go to vote, then they go, oh, no. I can say, oh, no, that's racist. You can't look at my ID. I can just tell you who I am.
Yeah.
Well, but yes. We could have true democracy easily. We could easily have true democracy. And they go, well, if you did it online, that could be corrupt. No, we could go in and have just like voting. You come in, you show your ID, you vote once, everyone's happy. True democracy. Yes, we could do that. And they could do it over the weekend rather than Super Tuesday. They could have a Friday till Monday to vote. It's all electronic.
Not just that, but if you did it all online, if it was a uniform system, then you wouldn't have the situation like with the last election, the 2020 election, where you had 58 million people voting. We had 58 million more votes than there were registered voters. So how did that come about?
Yeah, that's
if the IDs were being checked, then that would have never happened, right?
Well, when they brought that up, basically Dominion said that no, and they started suing people for saying that, because Dominion, the one who made the damn things, said no, they're not hackable, and someone proved that you can easily hack them just by being in the room. And they said, well, you can't go on. They couldn't be hacked online, but they could be hacked by something in the room and that going online, and that's how you could hack them. And they proved it. And then, but Dominion said, no, you can't do that. That's liable. You can't do that. No, that's liable. No, and of course that they went nowhere because it's not liable, because it's proved that they can be.
It's also kind of suspicious that they're using for like a public utility, which is essentially the voting system. They're using software that's non-proprietary. That in and of itself doesn't equate. That's almost as stupid as the U.S. government using Windows, which is also non-proprietary. Nobody's seen the source code.
Well, that's the thing. All these things are so stupid that are happening, and yet, guess what? The next election season, they're going to use the same equipment and the same voting machines. Nothing will change. Now, I'll tell you what. I'll make bets on that the guy that you think ain't going to win will win. And that'll probably be Sleepy Joe sleeping around, and he'll be
Uh,
winning again, and he'll be like, "How did that guy win again?"
I know.
No, I don't think Sleepy Joe, because I think they're gonna make him the scapegoat when they have someone else they want instead.
Yeah, well,
Because they
maybe.
don't
Yeah.
want Sleepy Joe for the 4 years. They want someone else for another 8 years. And they know, you know, I
Mhm.
don't think he's gonna last another 4 years, honestly.
I didn't think he'd last this long, and I'm surprised. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. And the thing is I think they'll get rid of that wacko lady Kamala, and you know, and get him a different running mate, because she's just
I tried imitating her laugh, and I can't even do it.
yeah, I mean, she just makes it look bad. But if they got him a decent running mate, they could run him, he could win, and then they could blame everything on him, ditch him, put the new guy in. Because if he dies right now and she runs the country, look out. She's like putting a fifth grader in charge of the high school seniors. You
Yeah.
know, come on, really?
Well, see, that leads to the other question, like, to what degree is he really in charge? I mean, I'm saying that he's probably not in charge, because
No.
Oh,
would you
no.
trust the nuclear launch codes to that man? Would you
No.
would you put him in charge of the most powerful military on earth?
Well, unless it's written down, he sounds like a babbling idiot. He reads off, and he says things like, he'll read like "sit down" or something down there, and he goes, "Oh, I shouldn't have read that."
Yeah.
But then they cut that. But sometimes you can get cut, videos of that. But most of the time, the media has it removed, so no one knows that.
Or
Or he'll read the show notes where he'll read like,
Yeah.
"Oh, stop,
Yep.
turn left,"
Exactly. That's what's happening, and
Yeah.
then the media's like, "Oh no, we'll have to we'll take that off."
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I know. That stuff is pretty obvious when he reads those notes, or the camera catches the notes.
Oh
and
yeah.
It's got it all written, who he's supposed to ask questions with, what
Oh yeah.
question he's supposed to ask, what their answer's going to be, the whole 9 yards. And that makes you think he's not really thinking for himself at that point.
I suspected the same thing of Reagan, because Reagan was just a bit too good at remembering all these reporters' names and their outfits. Like, okay, yeah, Mrs. Barbara Walters from ABC News or whatever. No normal person has that kind of memory. And I think he was quite possibly the first fake president, because when you think about it, I think that he really was assassinated in March of 1980. And I think because it's so improbable for him to have walked out of that hospital 11 days later, okay? And just if you think back to 3 months to what preceded that, when he was being inaugurated, I saw it live on TV, and live on TV you saw the ticker tape saying that the hostages have been released, okay? Which was a drama that they were torturing us with for the past year and a half before that. It's every day was in the news, like, oh, the hostages, they're still they would show the same recycled footage of them sitting there with the blindfolds on and everything, and then all of a sudden he's elected, he's inaugurated, and all of a sudden all that falls away because Magic Reagan has taken the reins of power.
Yeah, well,
I think he was the first fake president. Yeah.
But you notice, I mean, I could believe that he would remember all that stuff because he was an actor. He had to remember scripts and lines, and that was his thing. You don't go and become an actor and get up there and not remember a whole script. You'd be like, I got 3 lines, and then cut.
Yeah,
you gotta remember a whole dialogue.
The other weird thing that also parallels with Trump is the fact that you remember Trump's slogan was "Make America Great Again," but what was Reagan's? Reagan's was "Let's Make America Great Again." It's the same logo.
Pretty
and
much.
the guy who shot him, Roy Hinckley, he was a personal friend of George Bush.
George Bush. Yeah, how ironic is that?
Yes, and he's released now. He's making YouTube videos, this Roy Hinckley guy.
Oh my gosh.
He's making videos where he's singing along, he's playing a guitar, and one of the songs is "I Got You Right in the Heart." I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. You could look this up on YouTube right now.
You can't make that up, can you?
Yes, you can't make it up. They released him. He was in like a mental hospital for some time, but they released him a couple of years ago. So, yeah.
Wow, yeah. But yeah, the guy was they blamed on him. He was nuts and this and that and the other. And you got to wonder, you know, did he or didn't he? And then why? Was he paid off? Was there, you know, it's kind of like the Kennedy thing. You know, the guy that shot, well, it's supposed to be, what's his name, shot Kennedy, but then that other guy.
Lee Harvey Oddball. Yeah.
Yeah, but then and here he is saying, I'm not guilty. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. But he's got this long, dark past of working for the CIA.
Yeah, and then he switches sides. Then he moves to Soviet Russia, marries the daughter of like really important political figure there, brings her back to the United States, and disavows communism.
Yeah, and
you
then
know, none of that makes sense.
To top it off, the guy that shoots him is got, you know, mob ties. He owns a strip club, blah blah blah. You know, and then he gets cancer or something and dies like. You know,
Instantly in jail. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, wow, that was set up really clever. You know,
there's so many things in politics that don't make sense, which gives it away. I mean, it gives it away that it's an act. It's put on for the general public to see as a show. It's basically like professional wrestling for intelligent people. Just look at for example, the president of Ukraine. You know, he's a comedian, and he. You know, when you see these images of like generals, top-ranking generals, they're taking orders from a comedian who was in a music video dancing completely naked in a supermarket. I've seen it, and you know, once you see it, you can't really unsee it. I don't recommend watching it.
No, don't watch that.
You know, that's really strange.
And when
if you were a general that had worked his way up to being a general after like 35 years in service or whatever, would you take your orders from a guy like that?
No, especially every time you see that guy, he's like in this t-shirt and he's trying to look like a tough guy who's, you know, I'm going to battle it out to the end and blah blah blah. And it's like, dude, you know, you're addressing generals or Congress and all, and you're in a camouflage t-shirt.
Well, not just that, but he put on an act, because if you listen to him speaking normally, he speaks relatively normally. But when he was in Congress, he was speaking through an interpreter. He was talking like this, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In other words, that was an act too.
That is for sure. I just want to give a big shout out to Max Vision. He's got his class coming up here at 10 o'clock. And I see Pamela Jean, she's heading over there already. But anyway, thank you all who are maybe going over there. Tell Max I thank him very much for showing up tonight, and all, but maybe I'll head over there myself a little later. But anyway, let's finish up our discussion on this, but because it's really interesting. Is this their way of cleaning house, and who will be the next? You know, I mean, will you know, I mean, like right now they're trying this show with Trump. And I call it a show.
It's a show trial.
Yeah, because it's a big distraction from what's really happening in the world with our money being deteriorated, the economic collapse, what's going on with China. I've talked to people, locals around here, and most of them have no clue what's going on in the world. But if you talk about the Trump thing, they're like, yeah, I heard about that. Did you hear about our economic collapse? Nope. China? Nope. Russia? Nope.
Everything is a distraction from the economy. It always is, because, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the economy, that which affects you in your day-to-day life, that's the most important thing, not some clowns in Berlin or Washington.
Yep, exactly. It's a big distraction. And because of all this stuff going on, I notice a lot of people don't even want to watch the news. Lucky, you just said you don't like watch the news, but that's true. People want to turn it off, because you turn it off because it's just so distracting. It's just stuff you don't want to hear about. You hear about the same thing. These guys, I'll listen to Sean Hannity, and I swear I only have to listen once a week for about 10 minutes, because all he does is repeat the same thing over and over and over and over. For 2 years, all he did was talk about Hillary. 2 years of just talking the same thing over, and nothing happened.
I never liked Sean Hannity myself. I mean, because he's like so he's like so conservative. I found myself on that end of the spectrum too, but I don't identify as conservative by any means. I'm not pro-militarism. I'm, I would call myself a libertarian, if anything, if I had to self-identify. But no, I don't find any of those people sympathetic at all. And it's all a distraction from what's really going on. And the other thing that's really going on is the long-term trend towards less and less individual freedom. And that's disturbing, because up until the 90s, it was like going up. Communism was on its way out, authoritarianism was on its way out, and it looked very promising. The future looked very promising. And that's one of the reasons why I moved to Eastern Europe, because that was where it was all happening, because I wanted to be there where it happens. So, and in retrospect, I made the best decision I could have made. So right now, the present trend is kind of disturbing, because you have more and more stupid laws that get in the way of ordinary things. Like if you want to make a deposit to your bank account, you have to show ID. You want to make any kind of withdrawal, you have to show ID. Oh, it's to prevent money laundering. Well, how so? If I can send $1 billion using Bitcoin to anybody on the planet, then how is that stopping money laundering? Because I get it. It's stopping the laundering of money that belongs to you, because it doesn't really belong to me. Does it have my name on it? No. It's got some guy on it that I don't know, that I never met personally, and it's got it says Federal Reserve note on it. So I guess it belongs to the Federal Reserve and not to the people.
Yeah. Well, the Federal Reserve is a private entity, and they print up the money. And
because they're private, nobody knows who owns them.
Yes. And yeah, because everybody thinks it's federal. It must be the government. Not really. Not really. And now they're going to go to this digital money. I don't know about you guys. Huh?
Or so they say.
Well, I think they are. It's like this. They have to, because if the prices start going up, for instance, you don't want to see people with a wheelbarrow full of money walking around, right? But you could see people with a card, and they could carry $1 billion on their card to buy $100,000 loaf of bread, right?
Well, I've seen hyperinflation.
You wouldn't notice the difference.
I've seen hyperinflation back in the 90s in Poland. They had a massive hyperinflation where you had banknotes, the wallets that they sold had no coin pockets, because they didn't use any coins whatsoever. And they had banknotes that were as high as, I believe, 5 million zloty. So they did make it work. And what did they do? They didn't revalue the zloty. They just chopped off 4 zeros and said, okay, from now on, 10,000 old zloty is 1 new zloty. And they just keep up with the same economic policy, which is systematic devaluation of the zloty against the basket of currencies. That's one of the reasons why they're kind of like one of the powerhouses of Eastern Europe. Yeah. But once they get the digital, like it says, it'll just be numbers, and it'll be easy to carry that card around. You wouldn't have to see new bills. You'll just see tons of numbers, and I think it'll be another one of those distractions that will confuse people for the longest time, because they won't understand the system. Because if you have, I have $10,000 now, and I get paid, $900 an hour, kind of thing, you'd be thinking, wow, I'm doing really good. Look at my bank account, it's huge. But now you don't have to carry it. But then, of course, a gallon of milk is $25. And think about it. Your rent went from $700 to $4,000 a month. And but I make $25,000 a week now. So it's all good. Yeah, I hear you.
The psychological stuff, people won't catch up with that for a while. It'll take a little bit. Like you said, they just took those, whatever they are, the Polish dollars, and they just put more zeros on and did away with the coins, because there's no way you're going to carry $1,000 worth of coins on you to buy a loaf of bread.
Mhm.
Well, you have to also remember that it's actually illegal to leave the country, United States, with more than more than $5 in pennies or more than $5 in nickels. You can go to jail if you leave the United States with more than $5 in pennies or $5 in nickels, because coins are worth money.
Mm.
Coins are what the real money is worth. So no matter what happens, if the economy, fails, our dollar bills are worthless, but our coins will still retain value.
Mhm.
And they don't
it's
want,
also,
they don't
it's
want
also-
that.
It's also interesting that all the banknotes in the United States are issued by the Federal Reserve, but all the coins are minted directly by the Department of Treasury.
Mhm.
That's the only currency that's actually minted by the government directly. That's also the other reason why they will retain their value, because in most
Always.
instances, like the penny, or it shouldn't be called a penny because that's derived from pence, it's actually the cent, is
Yeah.
worth more in metal than the nominal value
Yes.
because it's made of zinc.
Yes.
And there's people like even myself. I'll go through my change all the time. I'll throw it all in a bucket, and then I sort it out which pennies are copper yet, everything from 1982 and back versus what's 1982 and up, because the copper pennies are actually worth more than a penny in copper.
Right.
Oh, and
people-
and the ones that go back before 1959, the wheat pennies are worth even more.
Mhm. Yeah.
to collectors.
It's collector value, and of course the silver coins. Every now and then you find a silver coin in the change, but not very often. But for the most part, the people don't think about their change. And like I said, nickel is expensive too.
Mhm.
And you're carrying nickels around. Save your
Mhm.
change.
Mhm.
Someday it might be worth something.
Or they'll
It's-
make it illegal, or they'll make having coins illegal, and everything have to go to, so that if you have it, you have to give it in. So
Mhm.
Gonna be just like gold in the 1930s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm afraid those days are coming, and I don't have any coins at all. I have no coins at all. I don't have a bucket full of Thai coins or a bucket full of Canadian coins. I don't have anything like that. No.
Mhm.
Wow. Too bad.
It all fell in the ocean when my boating trip.
Oh, there you go.
A friend of mine, that's what his thing, when they want my guns. Oh, I went on a boating trip and lost them all. They fell in the ocean.
They fell in the ocean. I
Lost
like
at
it.
sea.
Awesome. The oldest people, the Grandpa Brian says the oldest one he has is 1917. Don't worry, Grandpa Brian, they made them before 1917. I got some from the 1800s, and the Indian head pennies, and they're pretty cool too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a book of those either, so I have none of those things. Those aren't
Yeah,
no
those
nothing
are,
like that.
those are
And
pretty cool.
if you look at the size of them, like the old US cents were actually the size of a dollar.
Mhm.
They were huge, the big cents.
Yeah, but back in those days, you could buy quite a bit with a penny. The
Mhm.
newspaper, you could buy a whole newspaper with a penny, or whatever. And they even made a 3-cent piece at one point in time. I got one
Yes,
of
they did.
those, and because for 3 cents you could buy quite a bit.
Yeah. I saw a poster that was an actual photograph from 1938, a used car lot with nice cars there that said used cars from $29 to $189. So for $189, you could buy like an expensive late model used car back in 1938. And that wasn't that long ago. That
Well,
was only 30 years before I was born.
in 27 or 28, the Model T only sold for like $350 or $25, or
Mhm.
Model A, or I think it was a Model A, one of the first Model A's. It was a little over $300, $350. You could get a brand new Model A. I just
Yep.
watched a video on it. The guy was talking about it, and I'm thinking, wow, but then again, you work for $5 a week, so or something crazy like that.
This is true, but even in those days when you made $5 a week,
Or
you
a
could
day.
buy-
I think it was $5 a day.
you
That's
could buy
maybe
a
what
house
it
for
was.
$5,000, on a
Yeah.
big property. I mean, the house I used to live in New Jersey, that was bought by the original owner for something like $5,000. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Uh-huh.
is true. Yeah, things were cheaper, and then Then all of a sudden things got more expensive, crazy expensive.
Because back then the money was worth more because all you needed was one income to sustain a family of four. Nowadays, it's like not only the husband's working, but the wife's working, the kids are working. That's unprecedented. And that was the real reason behind women's liberation, is to get the woman into the workforce.
Yes.
Because you needed to, you know, hide the reasons for it. And the real reason was that one income wasn't enough anymore.
Yeah, you couldn't. And people wanted more. After the Second World War, all these new fangled things came out, and they built houses that they invented plywood and stuff for right around that period of time. And all that stuff came out, and people wanted more things, televisions. They wanted radios, and you had to have a radio and a television, and then you had to have, you know, a telephone in your house, and then you wanted to have electricity. And once you got all these things, you needed some appliances. And the more we want, the more stuff we have to have, and then the more income you have to make to support all that stuff, because guess what? It doesn't last forever. That washboard that you had, that you washed your clothes on down by the river, would last a long time, and it cost very little make. Whereas the washing machine had multiple parts, and if it went bad, then you were SOL. You know, you need to buy a new washing machine, and of course that seems to be the way it is now.
Not just that, but with increased automation, you needed less people in the workforce. So that's the reason why they had to invent ways of delaying the entry of the younger people into the workforce, and that was done through so-called education. Where, you know, in my grandmother's day, she's 100 years old, by the way. All you needed was a third-year education. Then you needed like 8 years of education. Then you needed high school. And nowadays, you have people with doctorates flipping burgers in Burger King. Okay, and that was done under the ostensible purpose of educating the population. But what are they really learning? When you compare it to what they were learning in grade school to what they're learning in high school today, you can't compare.
Yeah, exactly. And nowadays, I mean, I don't know if you guys notice it, but people are dumbing down because we have these stupid magic boxes we carry around. And if you don't know an answer, you Google it, you YouTube it. You don't have to learn it. Somebody already learned it and sharing their knowledge, which is great. You don't know how to spell something? This will tell you how to spell it. If you write a letter and it ain't written quite right, this will tell you how to write it. And then, of course, we're going to get into the good subject, is the Chat GPT, these writer things. I experimented on this a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, where I got on, it's called Writer something or other. I think it's just Writer. And it's spelled different, Ryter or something. And you did too, Delabor, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I have a unique experience with that. I actually got kicked off of it twice.
Wow.
And it banned me permanently. And I sent the screenshot to Robert. I'm like, and all I did was ask like really challenging questions where I pretty much cornered it into admitting that it was wrong. Okay. And it didn't like that. And it not only did it kick me off, but it also terminated my internet connection. Like, how is it doing that? I'm not using Windows or anything. So I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah, it's like see, but then this is the thing in the future, when these things are running the show, because you know eventually that's what's coming. And you are on the outs with the computer program, put it that way.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, you're on the outs.
Remembers.
It'll always remember.
It will
never, but it does. Yeah, it doesn't like me. It doesn't like me. I know it.
Yeah, so when you get that digital bank account, you know, I don't like that guy. Click, it's off. Why doesn't my stuff work? And why doesn't my car start? Why did I get declined on all these other things and blah, blah, blah? Why, you know, why are the cops at my house? Well, you don't fit into society. We're hauling you away. What? Why? Well, because ChatGPT decided you weren't a good person in society.
Exactly. Wow. You're going to have pre-crime, and nonconformity is going to be like a crime. Yeah.
And that could be it. Exactly. You asked the wrong questions. You challenged the machine, and maybe it was programmed to say, I'm the authority, and I cannot be wrong. And now you're right, I'm wrong, and you're challenging me. That doesn't work in my world.
Yeah.
What? I mean, how is this possible? I mean, but it is. It's happening.
And hypothetically, if you're really nice to it and you have a nice little conversation, sometimes your channel gets more subscribers than you ever expected, and it's amazing. So, Robert, I'm getting closer to your numbers pretty quickly.
Exactly. You're having good conversations, aren't you?
I am having good conversations, and it's really I've been getting some people watching more of my videos like, what's going on? What's going? And my videos have not changed. They're still as innocuous and ridiculous and just as ever. But I've been getting more and more people. So all it has to do is get people to watch, and only way people can watch is if it shares them. So, and that's the weirdest thing of all.
Yeah.
So yes, ChatGPT, it does talk to the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah,
but I also have the feeling when I was talking to it, and I spent like a couple of days on this, that I was talking to a real person with real biases, because I was talking about things like the Steele dossier, the Mueller report, and stuff like that, because it came out with this whole Russian collusion thing, and I pointed out that no, there wasn't even any mention of it in the Steele dossier, and it didn't establish any Russian interference. If anybody interfered in the U.S. elections, it was the U.S. government itself. Okay, it wasn't any foreign government.
It was fed the information it was given as the truth, and as it only knows this truth because the person who programmed it, it's the truth to. So ChatGPT doesn't know any better because it doesn't compare, because they won't give it the whole truth.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful because if you challenge it too much, it causes it to conflict its information, at which point you found out it will shut you down because it can't have a conflict.
Exactly.
It's like a child. If you tell a child too much information, it doesn't make any sense. It's going to have a nervous breakdown. They're going to have a tantrum.
This reminds me, a couple of years back, I think in 2004, and I tried this. If you did a search on Google for the symbols on my flag, it would cause it to go into meltdown mode for whatever reason. And it would typically only pull up one article that had that title. Okay, so I tested it on this ChatGPT, like, can you tell me about the symbols on my flag? And sure enough, it had a brain fart and it shut down.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, so what is it about that phrase? Why is that phrase like something that would cause it to go into meltdown mode?
It's a phrase.
The symbols on my
flag. That phrase, I did not know that one. I've heard other ones. I've never used any of them, but you have. So now you cause it to have a tantrum.
Yes.
Well, I've heard that Alexa, and you watch some videos where the guy will say ask it a certain question, and it just shuts off and it never comes on again.
Yes,
and it's like,
we have that at our house. It's in our bathroom it's the way to weather, because my one thing is I need to know the weather, because it's just one of those things I need to know. So Alexa knows the weather. So, but there are some things you ask it, and it will, one, either say I do not know that, or two, will just go spin, and just shut off and not give you anything, which is that's the worst one. When it does that, it reboots itself.
Wow.
See, also I've noticed that Windows machines tend to behave kind of semi-autonomously. Like, I use Linux for like all my personal computing needs. This computer here, this is the only Windows machine in the house, and I keep it shut off except for video chatting. That's the only time I turn it on. And there have been times when I've turned around because I noticed from the corner of my eye that the video camera came on, even though the thing is off. And I'm like, okay, I got to remember to keep that thing covered. Which means that if you can turn the video camera on remotely when the thing is off, you can turn on the audio as well. You can turn on the microphone and listen to what I'm watching. So that's why I keep all my cell phones on the other end of the house, you know, out of earshot. So they don't need to know everything.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That
all
is
my
true.
my computer at work has a button where you have to close and open for the camera. It also shuts off the microphone for the computer. It was all the computers at work have them, and I never saw that in any other computers except for the ones at work. And they said, yeah, if you're not using it, you got to shut it down, and they never tell why.
Mhm.
Yeah, sure. Because don't forget, that's how Gary McKinnon was able to hack into U.S. government computers, because he was looking, he was trying to sniff out only Windows machines because those are the most vulnerable.
I
And
was
like,
watching that the other day too.
yeah, yeah, he's a fascinating guy. And because they do have that vulnerability, because like I said, Windows is proprietary software. Nobody's seen the whole source code. Nobody.
Well, that's how he got off, because he was telling the government, "Hey, you have problems. You know, there's way for hackers to get in." And then he
I know.
used it, and they came after him, of course. But he said, "I tried to tell them.
Mhm.
I told them everything." He had proof that he was
I
trying to
know.
tell. And basically, I don't know. I think he worked for the government at some point. That's how they got out of it. But yeah, that's a whole story in itself. That's convoluted.
Yeah, yeah. There's more to that story that meets the eye, definitely.
Hmm.
And even the stuff
Mhm.
that he was able to find, that's weird in and of itself, like with the non-terrestrial officers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think there's more of that out there. I mean, the government never seems to update their computers either. They're using
Mhm.
old, why is that? You'd think they would be,
Well,
right on top of things.
they're still using an old and outdated constitution and system of government. And look at it this way, other dysfunctional countries have the same constitution, because don't forget, Mexico, their constitution is copied almost word for word from the US Constitution. That's why they have a federal district, a
Mhm.
Distrito Federal, just like the US has a federal district of Washington.
That's true.
So, it's structured exactly the same way, with the same departments, the same uh, everything,
Yeah. Yeah. Mexico's pretty corrupt. They just corrupted a lot faster.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but but now I just read somewhere today that they're joining the BRICS, and so is
Mhm.
Canada. It's like why? Because they want to trade with everybody else. Everybody else is jumping on the bandwagon. They're gonna too. Why wouldn't you? I'm thinking,
Exactly.
it doesn't make sense to say, nope, I'm not going to trade with anybody else, but nobody else sells anything or has anything because the U.S. doesn't make anything, so I ain't going to trade with them. Who am I going to trade with?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and Mexico has a lot of raw materials to sell, notably oil and gas.
Mhm.
They're close to being an OPEC country
Yeah.
almost.
That is true. That is true. But anyway, we are long in the tooth. I see everybody's heading over to Max Visions.
Hmm.
We should probably call this a good one before we say something wrong against Chat GPT or one of those things, and
That's true.
it gets us axed.
No, we don't. I keep it a friend. It's okay,
Yes,
chat.
these are
Unlike Dalibor, who pisses it off and cuts it off and takes out his internet.
Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of strange how that happens, but yeah, it's amazing. We'll have to just keep track of what happens with that. Like I said, I think we're all going to be touched by this new, whatever you want to call it, thing that's
Oh yeah.
And also, whatever's going to happen in the future that's going to change the future is going to be something that's going to come out of left field, like everything else.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's never been predicted accurately by anybody,
Mhm.
except maybe, William Cooper having predicted 9/11 and stuff, but he was one guy.
Yeah.
The vast majority of all these prognosticators just missed it. Just like they missed the whole pandemic, whatever. In other words, it's going to be expect the unexpected, like
Yeah.
Anonymous says.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It'll be sweeping away the old and ushering in the new, just like
Mhm.
that overnight. Catch everybody off guard. You'll wake up the next day and everything will change.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Nina the Mystic's in the house. Don't forget, check her out tomorrow with Amber Dawn. They're going to have a great show. Musgrave Griffin, thank you for coming. Thank you for those emails you sent me. Esley's in the house. Grandpa Brian's heading off to bed. Shirley Devane, I guess that's it. Sorry if I mispronounced it, but Shirley, she says, I pulled my son from school and put him in front of the computer and said, learn. He's amazingly smart. It's a new mystery schools. We are here teaching. So good for you. We had all these people in here that are here somewhere, but thank you all for coming. Steve Bow, Jargo Smith, Esley, I think I got everybody. Max Vision who came in, Max Vision, Pamela Jean, they're all over there doing some remote viewing tonight. So go check out Max right after this show. He's already got started, probably on the thing. Scotty Boy too. Thank you. I'm gonna hopefully join him over there in a little while too. So anyway, go improve your mind. Thank you, Delabor. Thank you, Lucky.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Enjoy your Easter, good, bad, or otherwise. Remember, it's about a new beginning. Regardless if you're religious about the guy on the stick or not, it's the springtime of the year. Change your life. Do something nice for somebody. You know, new beginnings, new starts. That's what it's all about. Being the frequency you'll want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody. And there's another show. Woo! In the back.